There is one message, but not one man or person to share the gospel. Grace and peace, everybody. Welcome to Sabbath School Study Group. My name is Chris Bailey. We're on the road here in Texas, Lubbock, Texas, to be exact, on the campus of Texas Tech University. We're smack dab in the middle of a new series looking at Philippians and Colossians, talking about Paul and Colassae today. But before we get into the study, I want to thank you so much for watching. Do us a favor, hit the like button and make sure you watch the study until the very end. And if you could, subscribe to the channel to stay in touch. And we'd like to come to where you are. If we can go to Lubbock, why can't we go to where you are? Send us an email address, and that email is contact@changeministry.org. So let's get to it now, looking at Paul and Colassae. He is the author of the book, or the epistle, the letter to the church of Colassae. But guess what? When he writes this book, he mentions someone else who is also sharing the gospel. One message, but not one messenger. It's there in Colossians chapter 1, verse 7. It says, "As ye also learned of Epaphras, our dear fellow servant, who is for you a faithful minister of Christ." So Paul is mentioning another brother by the name of Epaphras, who actually is the one who introduces the people of Colossae to the gospel of Jesus Christ. This is a beautiful picture of working together. This is a network of ministry. So that Paul, even though when we think of Colossians, we're thinking that he's the first, the last, and the in-between of the messengers to these people. And that's not the case. It was actually Epaphras that he calls out, and he commends him for being faithful. He throws what Paul continues now to carry. Even in Colossians chapter 4 and verse 12, about Epaphras, it says, "Epaphras, who is one of you, a servant of Christ, saluteth you, always laboring fervently for you in prayers, that you may stand perfect and complete in all the will of God." I like how Paul doesn't just call out Epaphras, but he commends him. And he says, he is one of you. And that gives us a clue as to why God needs more than one person. God needs people who he knows what it's like to stand and to work in a corporate boardroom. But God also needs people who he knows what it's like to stand on the corner, on the street. He needs us from all backgrounds because God so loved the world. That world is not just on the street. That world is not just in a boardroom. That world doesn't look like you and me. It looks like people who don't look like either one of us. And because of that, God uses and needs people so that they can say, hey, this is someone who's like me, so let me introduce you to someone who loves us all. Even over here in the book of Philemon, Paul mentions Epaphras again, where he says, "There salute thee, Epaphras, my fellow prisoner in Christ Jesus." So now he says he's one of you, but Paul says he's mine too. That's my brother. He's a fellow prisoner. He's someone who's bound to the call of sharing the gospel of Christ. And he's someone who's even suffering for answering that call that God has called him to. Knowing sometimes that you've got a fellow prisoner, it gives you just enough faith and encouragement to know I can continue. I can keep running my race. That's why God needs all of us, and knowing that he doesn't just want to use one of us. But even if everybody says no, and if it was just Paul and Epaphras, God can use one, two, any convicted group of people to turn their neighborhood, to turn their community, to turn their country, to turn the world upside down and right side up towards God. God is not dependent on numbers, but know this, if he saved you, that means he's called you, and he's called all of us, like Paul and Epaphras, to stand together by standing on Christ.